Today's episode is brought to you by Wonder Wigs, home of the most natural looking pre-plucked wigs, frontals, bundles, and more. I'm talking about top quality, grade A hair, y'all. Make sure you check them out at wonderwigswithaz.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Real Women Chronicles podcast. I am your international certified life coach, Tiaudra Taylor. The sole purpose of this podcast is to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Yes, it's time to break chains and to get unstuck. Thanks again for joining in. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to yet again another Real Women Chronicles podcast. I am your host, Tiaudra Taylor, certified life coach, and I thank you guys for joining in. We are on podcast number 30, and let me just say this. I have been getting so much feedback on the podcast episodes, and I am so grateful, y'all. Y'all just do not know, like, every time I receive an email or a DM, it just, somebody asking questions or somebody inquiring or commenting about a podcast, it really, really warms my heart. So don't think that you're bothering me by emailing me. Don't think that you're bothering me by DMing me and asking me questions that you may have, because that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm born for, y'all. It's not about money. It's just about me being able to help and just, spread the experience that I have and relay the experience that I have, not only through school, but also through life experience to others. That's what I'm here. That's what I love to do. I do it not only professionally, I do it personally as well. I am that go-to person that everybody in my family calls when they're having relationship problems and, anything, work problems, anything. So I am just absolutely just humbled by the position that God has given me, and I pray that it just continues to grow. So listen, make sure if you are listening to this podcast that you are subscribing, because if you are not subscribing, or if you are not subscribed to my iTunes, or I also have my podcast listed on SoundCloud as well as iHeartRadio. If you are not subscribed, then you are not going to know when I post these episodes. So please subscribe. Definitely let me know how you enjoyed the podcast. If you listened to an episode and it really, really helped you, leave a comment somewhere so that I know that you are engaged. I love hearing from my followers. So let's just jump right in to podcast number 30. I can't wait till I can say like 330, but right now we are on podcast number 30. And let me tell you the topic of this podcast. Okay, the topic of this podcast is stop complaining and start changing. And I'm going to break this topic down for you, okay? Whenever you find yourself constantly complaining about something, always sit back and ask yourself, what can I do about it? See, there are many things in life that are outside of our control, okay? There are health issues, just things, period, outside of our control, and there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to have faith, and we always have to have faith, but especially in the circumstances that we have that we can't do anything about it, we just have to stand firm in faith and just, ride the wave. But there are things, believe it or not, that we constantly complain about that are in our complete control. There are circumstances that we complain about and we do nothing to change it. And we just sit around and we complain and we deal with the misery, we deal with the upsets, we deal with the heartache, and the entire time it's within our ability to change it. So that's what I want to talk about today on today's podcast, because I want us to stop complaining about the things you have the power to change. Okay? Just imagine you complain about that job. Okay? You don't know how many of us will sit around, come home every day. I hate this job. I hate this working underneath this boss. I hate this about the job. I hate my coworkers. I hate. But yet we won't take an hour out of each day to look for more jobs. Sometimes you need people in your life who are willing to be transparent, and I'm that person. So if you are listening to this podcast, you are my sister, you are my brother, and I love you. So I'm going to be transparent. If every day you're coming home and you're complaining about the same things you hate about a company, the company that you work for, my question to you is, why are you still there? And get it. Listen, I get it. You have bills to pay. We got kids, we got bills, we got all these things. Okay. And you need a job that pays your bills. But listen at this. There are millions of jobs that will pay your bills. But if you believe that you can't get better employment, you'll stay right where you're at. While other people around you who believe higher will move higher. And I always tell this story to so many people because it's just a testimony in my life. There was a point in time where I was working at a job where I was surrounded by so many people that were just complaining, but they were content in their misery. They were just talking about how, no job is going to pay me more than what I'm making now. I might as well just deal with it. And a lot of those people who are very, very good people, some of them very close to me and I love them to death, but they're still at these companies and still complaining. And me, I started to believe higher. And I said to myself, you know what? I believe that there's other people out there that will pay me more to do the same thing or less. And that belief system manifested what I wanted. I left one job for a $25,000 a year pay increase, to the point where when I told people like, oh my God, and of course, I was young. So of course I'm going to, gloat about it, not brag about it, but just be so excited about it. And when I told people, it's probably unbelievable to them that somebody would take me from that company and offer me $25,000 more. Okay. And it was all about belief. See, they didn't believe that they deserved that type of income. They didn't believe that it was out there, so they didn't manifest it. But instead, they sat around and complain about the job and are still complaining about the same job while people who believed higher, like such as myself, moved higher. Okay. So again, when it comes to even employment, you have to understand that either you're going to do something about it or you're just going to be quiet. Because you have the power to change your employment situation. Nobody is forcing you to work at that job. Nobody is, forcing you to take that pay. Nobody is doing that. So if you're not being forced, then you can move and you can fly freely and you just have to believe. How many times do we complain about a relationship and how a man or woman's not treating us right? And how we wish things were different and how we're so sad and we're so miserable and we're constantly getting hurt. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If that man or woman is not treating you right, the only person you have control over in that relationship is you. Are you expecting, them to treat, treatment that is hindering you instead of helping you? Is that what you're accepting? Are you loving him more than you love yourself? I'm going to be truthful with you. Some situations you really have to look at and say, is this something that I am creating? Am I becoming the author of my own misery? And I know you've heard me say this if you are a follower of my podcast. Sometimes we become the author of our own misery. There are things in that relationship that you can change, okay? And you choose not to. You can change how that person is treating you. You can decide whether or not you want to accept that treatment. You can change how sad you are in that relationship. You can change these things, but the thing is you won't. And you complained, and you complain as if this person has the complete control over your happiness. But the only person you can control is yourself. And how you react to the situation. Maybe it's time to react in ways that benefit you. And stop being so self-sabotaging and sacrificing yourself for the love of somebody else. We will sit there and complain about a man cheating. We will sit there and complain about how disrespectful he is, but we won't move our feet. We don't have the courage to move our feet. And you expect him to put your happiness on the forefront when he's dictating everything that he wants in the relationship, and you're just accepting it. All while you're unhappy. Again, the things in your power to change, it's time for you to have the strength to change it. Even with friends, maybe you have friends that are, not aligned with your beliefs and your goals in life. And I've noticed this a lot of times, and especially female relationships, that we'll have friends and we feel that we have to be connected to them because we've known them since high school, since elementary school, and we just feel a sense of obligation to certain friendships. But here's the thing, if the friendship is not helping you grow, what is it there for? If you have a friend that you don't trust, if you have a friend that you don't believe that you can count on, and you feel that they're only out for their better interests, and they're only out, to call on you when they're in need, and then they're nowhere to be found when you need them, what's the purpose of that friendship? Any relationship you are in should be helping you grow. It should be helping you grow. But if it's not, the question is, whose responsibility is it to change that? And that's a rhetorical question, because I'm going to tell you, it's your responsibility to change that. Nobody else's. Absolutely nobody else's. So I want us to stop complaining about the things that we can change. No more should we, sit here and stress ourselves out over things we have the power to change. Instead, we have to start changing those things so that our happiness becomes a thing within our control. And we stop expecting others to help us maintain that happiness. I tell you guys all the time, whenever you put too much happiness on a situation or a person, you will be disappointed. Because the only person responsible for your happiness is you. And I want you to take charge today. I want you to hear this podcast and just be strengthened and understand that I understand it's easier said than done. Of course, it's always going to be hard walking away from people who you've developed a strong connection with. But whose happiness is more important? If you're miserable there, why are you there? You're hoping for change? Well, maybe it's been years. Maybe once that person shows you who they are, maybe it's time for you to believe it. And maybe it's time for you to ask yourself, can I deal with this person as they are today, 5-10 years from now? Too often we reminisce of how the relationship used to be. We reminisce about we imagine how the relationship could be. And we don't accept the relationship or situation for what it is now. Sure, that person can go on to be the best person you've ever met, but what if they don't? You can't predict the future. Sure, there could be opportunities that come up at that job, but what if it doesn't? And you've sat there, you've aged fast because you're stressed out Monday through Friday, working at a job you absolutely hate, waiting on an opportunity that never came to you. I challenge you to stop waiting. I challenge you to stop progressing. I'm sorry. Oh Lord, what is the word I'm looking for? To stop procrastinating. Okay? And I challenge you to move forward. Move forward. All right, so I'm going to close this podcast up. I hope that this podcast really touched the hearts and minds of somebody out there. I'm going to end this podcast in prayer as we always do. Father God, I thank you